Marcus Garvey, a man whose name echoes through history as a symbol of black empowerment and unity. But who was he really? And why does his legacy still resonate today? Marcus Messiah Garvey Jr. was born on August 17, 1887, in St. Ann's Bay, Jamaica. From humble beginnings, Garvey's journey took him across continents, from the bustling streets of Kingston to the vibrant shores of Costa Rica and the historic heart of London. But it was in Harlem, New York, where his vision for the black community truly began to take shape. Marcus was the youngest of 4 children born to Malchus and Sarah Garvey. His father, a stonemason with a small book collection, instilled a love for knowledge in young Marcus, even though their relationship was often strained. Malchus's reckless spending left the family in financial ruin, forcing Marcus to leave school at just 14 to help support them. Garvey began his career as an apprentice printer. His talent and ambition quickly caught the attention of those in management, and by the time he moved to Kingston in 1905, he was on his way to becoming the first Afro-Jamaican foreman at the P.A. Benjamin Manufacturing Company. Unfortunately, tragedy struck. The 1907 earthquake that hit Jamaica devastated Kingston, leaving Garvey and his family homeless. A year later, his mother passed away. Heartbroken, Garvey found solace in activism, joining Jamaica's first nationalist organization, the National Club, becoming a vice president of the Printers' Union. Ever political and in search of a better life for working-class black people in 1908, he led a strike that ended in failure, leaving him blacklisted and without work. But this only fueled his desire for change. Garvey would go on to publish magazines and newspapers, speaking out against the injustices faced by black Jamaicans. In March 1916, Garvey boarded the SS Talek and sailed for America. Little did anyone know this move would transform the UNIA into a global movement for black empowerment. In 1916, Marcus Garvey arrived in Harlem, New York, a city brimming with energy and a growing black community. Determined to bring his vision of unity to life, Garvey began his journey by giving public speeches.
Did not suffer and die to give me an education to slight, oppress, or discourage my people. Because whatsoever education I acquired out of their sacrifice of over 300 years, I shall use for the salvation of the 400 million black people of the world. And the day when I forsake my people, may God Almighty say there shall be no more life for you.
Garvey traveled across 38 states, meeting with black leaders and preachers, and spreading his message of black self-reliance and racial pride.
Namely, that God had created the black man inferior, and that he had intended Negroes to be a servant class, hewers of wood and bronze.
His tour inspired him to establish a branch of the Universal Negro Improvement Association in New York, inviting anyone of Negro blood and African ancestry to join. It quickly became a powerhouse of black nationalist thought. The UNIA called for unity between Africans and the diaspora, advocating for the end of European colonial rule and the creation of an independent Africa governed by black people. Standing on street corners, Garvey captivated audiences with his speeches.
I unequivocally rejected the racist assumption of much white American Christianity, namely that God had created the black man inferior and that he had intended Negroes to be a servant class, hewers of wood and drawers of water. Well, I predicated my view of man on the doctrine of Imago Dei. All men, regardless of color, are created in the image of God.
He advocated for black empowerment and criticized those who sought racial integration, positioning himself as a voice for the masses, especially for Afro-Caribbean immigrants like himself. In 1917, after the brutal East St. Louis race riots, Garvey called for armed self-defense and condemned what he termed as a white man's war. This rhetoric drew the attention of the US government, who began to monitor his activities closely. Garvey's influence grew, and in 1918 he launched the Negro World, a weekly newspaper that became the voice of UNIA. Despite financial struggles, it reached thousands in the US, the Caribbean, and even Africa, spreading Garvey's message worldwide. In 1919, UNIA opened Liberty Hall in Harlem, a place where black people could gather, share ideas, and celebrate their heritage. Garvey formed the African Legion, a group of uniformed men who symbolized black strength and unity. By 1920, UNIA boasted branches in 25 US states and divisions in the West Indies, Central America and West Africa. In October of 1919, Marcus Garvey's dream of black empowerment faced a deadly threat when George Tyler, a part-time vendor of the Negro world, stormed the UNIA office and fired 4 shots at Garvey. 2 bullets hit him, but he survived. Tyler was apprehended, but soon after, he took his own life, leaving behind a mystery as to why he tried to kill Garvey. Some speculated that then White Assistant District Attorney Edwin Kilroe had strong-armed Tyler into carrying out the failed assassination attempt due to a conflict between Garvey and ADA Kilroe, which culminated in Garvey writing a withering editorial about Kilroe in his newspaper. George Tyler died in police custody under mysterious circumstances in which he allegedly escaped custody and somehow jumped 30 feet to his death before being able to be questioned about the assassination attempt. Despite all of the skullduggery and drama, just days later, Garvey was back on stage in Philadelphia, determined to continue his mission.
Because if Negroes are created in God's image and Negroes are black, then God must, in some sense, be black.
To ensure his safety, he hired a bodyguard and pushed forward. That same year, Garvey married his fiancée, Amy Ashwood, in a grand ceremony attended by thousands of UNIA members. Unfortunately, their marriage quickly unraveled. Allegations of infidelity and constant arguments led to a bitter separation after just a few months. Garvey sought an annulment, and their legal battles stretched on for 2 years. Eventually, Garvey moved in with his new secretary, Amy Jacques, and Ashwood moved on to become a prominent figure in the Harlem Renaissance. Despite his personal setbacks, his work with the UNIA continued onward. In 1922, Garvey was arrested for mail fraud related to the Black Star Line. Choosing to represent himself in court, he struggled to make his case and was convicted. His sentence, 5 years in prison and a $1,000 fine. Garvey's conviction was seen by many as politically motivated. Imprisoned in the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary, Garvey continued to write and inspire his followers. His supporters rallied, gathering thousands of signatures for his release. In 1927, President Calvin Coolidge commuted his sentence, but Garvey was immediately deported to Jamaica. By the late 1920s, Garvey was arguably the most recognized black leader in the world. He led the largest black mass movement in history, inspiring millions with his call for black pride and self-reliance. Despite being celebrated as a Negro Moses by some, critics accused him of being an egotistical zealot and mocked his grand titles and military-style uniforms. In 1927, Marcus Garvey was forced to return to Jamaica. Greeted by loyal supporters, he purchased a grand home in an elite neighborhood, which he named Somali Court. There he founded the People's Political Party, continuing his fight for black self-determination. Garvey continued to rally the people, urging them to uplift their standards and fight against social inequalities. He founded the People's Political Party, PPP, and became a city councillor. But his activism soon led to imprisonment after he criticized the judiciary. Even in jail, Garvey remained defiant. After his release, Garvey ran for office again but faced defeat. As the Great Depression deepened, he struggled financially, losing many of his properties, including Edelweiss Park, the UNIA's headquarters in Jamaica. Disillusioned, Garvey left Jamaica in 1935, settling in London. He tried to revive the UNIA, but found little support among London's growing black activist community. Still, he launched a new publication, Black Man, and spoke at Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park. Later, Garvey would find himself involved in conversations surrounding the Second Italo-Ethiopian War. Initially, Marcus Garvey supported Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia against the Italian invasion, but their relationship soured when Selassie refused to meet him. Garvey's harsh criticisms of the emperor alienated him from his supporters, causing a further decline in his influence. By the late 1930s, Garvey's family left for Jamaica, leaving him isolated and struggling. His health deteriorated, and in 1940 he suffered a stroke. 2 weeks later, after reading premature obituaries in the newspapers, Marcus Garvey passed away at the age of 52. In 1964, Garvey's remains were returned to Jamaica, where he was reburied with national honours as one of Jamaica's first national heroes. Today, his legacy endures, inspiring movements and leaders worldwide. Garvey's legacy is not without controversy. His willingness to collaborate with white supremacists like the Ku Klux Klan, his prejudice against mixed-race people, and his criticism of Jews alienated many in the black community. Yet, despite these contradictions, he remains celebrated as a pioneer of black nationalism. Despite his legacy of controversy, Garvey's impact is undeniable. His philosophy influenced generations of leaders, from Ghana's first president, Kwame Nkrumah, to the founders of the Black Power movement in the United States. Nkrumah even named Ghana's national shipping line after Garvey's Black Star Line, a symbol of Pan-African pride. Despite his setbacks, Garvey's ideas spread like wildfire. His advocacy for black pride, unity and self-governance laid the foundation for movements like Rastafari, the Nation of Islam, and the Black Power movement. In 1965, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. visited Garvey's shrine, honoring him as the first man to give millions of Negroes a sense of dignity and destiny on a mass scale. Even though he never set foot in Africa, his call for a Back to Africa movement inspired millions to dream of a continent free from colonial oppression. In his homeland of Jamaica, Garvey was posthumously named a national hero in 1969. Garvey's call for African unity and liberation echoed across continents, influencing movements for independence in Africa and shaping the black nationalist agenda in the United States. His message of self-determination and racial pride laid the foundation for a new era of activism. While opinions on Garvey remain divided, his contributions to black empowerment and Pan-Africanism continue to inspire. His legacy stands as a testament to the power of vision and determination to uplift a people.
For 250 years, we have struggled under the burden and rigors of slavery. We were maimed, we were brutalized, we were ravaged in every way. We are men. We have hopes, we have passions, we have feelings, we have desires just like any other race. The cry is raised all over the world of Canada for the Canadians, of America for the Americans, of England for the English, of France for the French, of Germany for the Germans. Do you think it unreasonable that we, the blacks of the world, should raise the cry of Africa for the Africans? Yeah.